Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to World Civil or World World Religions, and we're looking at Chapter 8 today: Chinese religions, Confucianism, and Daoism. And I'm thinking just randomly, I didn't plan to bring this up, but um, if you haven't done this yet, you need to start to look at the final project, right? The final project, and yeah. As we amalgamate, all these religions that we're looking at, and we still have several to go. But so be looking at your final project if you haven't done that. This chapter here focuses on two indigenous Chinese religious traditions of Confucianism and Taoism, and both share a common source of common source spring, if you will, an ancient Chinese religion that dates back to at least the middle of the second millennium BC. And the texts that articulate this religion mentality are later revered as the five classics by the Confucians. Although Taoists also acknowledge the authority of some of the texts, especially the book of Yi Zheng, and use some of the same terms, though giving them different content and meaning along the way. So in this chapter, I'd like to get you to understand the nature and content of ancient Chinese religion, the foundations and fountainhead of Confucianism and Taoism, to understand the history, teachings, and way of life of Confucianism, to understand the history, teachings, and way of life of Taoism. Also, to appreciate the continued relevance of Confucianism and Taoism in modern and contemporary China. And then lastly, to appreciate the perennial value of Confucianism and Taoism among world religions. So the teachings, let's take a look at the teachings. And principal among the ancient Chinese religious view is the belief in the reciprocal and complementary nature of the kind of bipolar components of the cosmos expressed as the yin and the yang. There's also the notion of the easy accessibility between the worlds of the spirits and humans, and the continued relevance of the dead ancestors to the living descendants. Equally significant is the belief in the existence of a normative way, if you will. That's Tao. That's the Tao. And that originates from an ultimate reality that governs both the natural and the human worlds. So to the Confucians, who inherited the religious outlook, the Tao assumed a new meaning of being a normative, cosmic, and moral order ordained by the Qian, a moral will and source of being for the myriad of things around us. The Confucians also subscribed to the centrality of humans in the process of overall moral transformation, as well as material improvement of the entire world. And as articulated by Confucius and his students in the Analects and the next few generations of Confucian followers, such as Mencius and Shunzi, it is the ultimate religious obligation of humans in Confucianism to heed the injunctions of Tian. And this means to cultivate oneself morally and to believe and behave ethically in society so that, the entire human world can enjoy peace and prosperity, while the whole universe can attain perfect order and equilibrium as well. So through the assumption of the fundamental perfectibility of humans and their co-equal status with the supreme spiritual entities, the Confucian teaching insists on personal moral cultivation and harmonious relationship with the human and natural worlds as religious imperative, thereby making what is secular also the sacred. So when pardon me, when the Neo-Confucians reasserted their predominance in Chinese religious discourse after being overshadowed by the Buddhists and and the Taoists for close to a millennium, they aimed at repossessing the Tao that Confucians and Confucius himself and early Confucians had articulated, but in a more speculative way and metaphysical terms. So, as explained by Laozi and Xuanzi and others who held the belief that in the supremacy of the Tao, Taoism subscribes to a naturalistic view of things in the universe, namely that there's no explicit or hidden moral purpose imposed by some kind of supreme deity. And it also sees humans as merely one part of the cosmos, having no superiority over others. In fact, the human penchant for arbitrariness, contrived activity, and meddlesome intervention in the function of the universe is the source of both human and natural malady. It's kind of a disease, that desire. The Confucian insistence on moral behavior and social activism is particularly irksome to Taoist masters who perceive such undertakings as futile and even harmful. So the proper attitude is therefore to leave things alone and not to interfere with the natural flow of events expressed by the teachings of Wu Wei. And he taught, action without intention. And Ziran, that taught natural spontaneity. So this recognition of the supremacy of what is natural and the attendant yearning, I guess, if you will, for unity with it led to a somewhat unexpected twist in the Taoist outlook, already evident in the writings of the original masters, such as the legendary Laozi, and the more historically authentic Zhuangzi. We've mentioned both of those earlier. So it's the belief in the possibility of magical and physiological transformation of humans and other life forms that tend to be coterminous with nature. Trying to get the right words there, and that is to be immortal and invulnerable to physical harm. So thanks to the Taoist understanding of the three basic components of the human body, the Jing, which means essence, the Qi, meaning breath, and the Shen, one's spirit, there emerged a Taoist alchemical theory of the proper nurturing and mingling of the three, so that for lack of a better term, magical transformation of the body can take place, resulting in immortality. The history of Confucianism and Taoism. Confucianism, and used here somewhat reluctantly as Confucius, a kind of a Latinized name for Master Kong, was neither the founder of the tradition nor a divine being, okay? Properly understood as the teaching of the Ru, or scholars, ritualists, scribes, was the first to emerge from this ancient religious background as a distinct tradition. So what Confucius and his first few generations of followers did was to make the ancient Chinese religion they inherited far more personally relevant, I guess you could say, and religiously inspiring. They formed a movement rivaled by the Taoist tradition and others later on to deal with the moral, social, and political crisis that affected China during a very chaotic period in her long history. So by the middle of the 2nd century BC, the Confucian tradition was elevated to be the state orthodoxy, right? The state orthodoxy by the court. So in essence, and along with that, you had imperial academics and that were established to study the classics. But this triumph of Confucianism was neither total nor was it lasting. Its initial impulse and virtually became obscured by empty formalism and hair-splitting scholasticism. And in time, the new faith of Buddhism entered China, and from India by the way of the Silk Road. And at the same time, a popularized form of Taoism held sway over a substantial portion of the populace at this time. So the government collapsed. And for centuries thereafter, Confucianism existed only as a superficial framework of the state. It would be in the later Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279 AD, that Confucianism would enjoy a revival in the form of Neo-Confucianism, intensely bent on reviving what it idealized as the original and pure teachings of the early masters. Various groups of Neo-Confucianism would offer their own interpretations of the vision of Confucius and that of his immediate successors as well. They also rigorously battled against the prevailing influence of Buddhism and Taoism. And in this effort, Neo-Confucianism succeeded brilliantly on the rebound, as it, they, trying to get a right word for this here, they thereby establishing itself once again as the orthodox religious and intellectual tradition in China. So its view of the ideal human relationship, its standard of ethical values, and its concept of social and political order were accepted as normative by the majority of the Chinese population through court sanctions and educational incentives. So the traditional way of life of most Chinese was shaped by Confucian teachings and enacted in elaborate rituals at the state, community, and family levels. So between 1313 and 1905, right, close to 6 centuries, the content of the civil service examination, which served almost exclusively as the recruitment tool of all government officials, was based on designated Confucian texts known as the Four Books, including the Analects and the Mencius. So, in this manner, the fate of Confucianism became intimately tied to that of the imperial government. So since the middle of the 19th century, the Chinese government proved unprepared and unable to withstand the challenge of an expansionist West. China was defeated militarily and disgraced culturally. Confucianism was seen by a new generation of Chinese intellectuals as a reactionary and oppressive ideology that was responsible for China's backwardness and its humiliation. So this antagonistic and dismissive attitude toward the Confucian heritage among China's elite lasted until the late 1970s, right? Modern times. And since then, a reappeared Confucianism by the Chinese government, in particular, some of its authority affirming aspects, and a rejuvenation of interest in this indigenous tradition among scholars worldwide have taken place. The perennial value of Confucius's teachings and the kind of the quintessential Chineseness, if you will, of its values are being recognized. So Confucianism remains a vital religious tradition, not only for China and East Asia, but also for the entire world. Taoism, when it first appeared from the same ancient Chinese religion that gave rise to Confucianism, offered an alternative view of humanity, society, and the cosmos. Laozi and Shengzi, regarded as kind of proto-deists, and as far as I'm concerned, and in this chapter, articulated a worldview and a moral political approach that were largely the polar opposite of those embraced by Confucius and his followers, which I think you're probably getting the drift of that as I go along in this lecture. While many of its early advocates were individualistic, searchers of the Tao, and very much allergic to collective mass actions, Taoism in time became a popular religious movement by the middle of the 2nd century AD, with the deification of Laozi and as the giver of a secret formula for achieving health and immortality, as well as a God who promises creation of a perfect political order on earth, impaired by Buddhism, and then often in direct competition with it, Taoism borrowed many of its organizational principles in terms of discourse of the former to enhance its appeal. It was too, I would say Taoism, it was, in fact, Taoism that perpetuated the Taoist tradition through Chinese history, producing schools and lineages of priests, uh, compiling revealed texts that eventually became the Taoist canon, the Daozang, envisioning a kind of a pantheon of deists, many of them female, pursuing physical well-being and even longevity through her herbs and other unique medical practices such as acupuncture and devising elaborate rituals that allow the practitioners to communicate with the divine, as well as to create cohesion in the community. So, as this later evolution of Taoism that the Confucian elites would disdain, regarding it as uncouth and certainly superstitious, though generally not regarded as the true equal of Confucianism, Taoism's always been a loyal opposition, along with Buddhism, to Confucianism. So these three traditions cater to the different religious needs of the Chinese people. When Confucianism was called into question in the modern era, Taoism too came under, I would say severe attack, along with the restoration of Confucianism to respectability since the 1970s. So Taoism has also enjoyed a revival as well. Taoist purists and Taoist priests, they're allowed to pursue their formal training and provide services for the community, while rituals are performed in front of appreciative crowds for communal solidarity and prosperity. More important, I would say, too, the Taoist teachings of harmony with nature, environmental concern, health and hygiene in food consumption, and medical procedures are all part of the, I think, the perennial appeal of Taoism. Then you have the ways of life of Confucianism and Taoism. As a religion that kind of diffuses throughout society with little structure and organization, Confucianism focuses on personal and communal behavior as a way of practicing its faith, from individual conduct to family rituals and on through communal and state ceremonies honoring Confucius and Tian. Confucians enact their deep understanding of the religious significance of day-to-day living. So in their ritual intercourse with others and with the spirits, ancestors, and gods, they fulfill their religious obligations. The Taoist way of life is expressed individually as an attitude toward health, food, exercise, and wholesome living. Taoism promotes a profound sense of love and respect for nature, as well as the need for humans to maintain harmony and balance with the natural environment. Communally, it is practiced through festivals and liturgies that invoke the entire village or town in an attempt to create social cohesiveness and close relationship with the gods. So there you have it, chapter 8. As we're groundly moving east, right? To the Far East now. So Confucianism, Chinese religions, Confucianism and Daoism. And again, look at your readings and accompany it with a lecture. And talk to you next time. We'll be moving a little even farther east if you could possibly do that, and you can. And we're going to be heading into Japan, right? And we'll be looking at Shintoism. So study well, be good. See you next time.